All right, guys. Episode 2. You've seen the title. It is going to be what young men should expect out of their significant others. Now, I know this is going to give me some rage. It's going to get me some rage, and that's okay. Uh, but I hate to disappoint. This is not going to be a video that is, this is a woman's job and that's a man's job. This is not what that video is going to be about. This video comes from something in my past. Um, when I was being told by my mother and generalized society and in teachers at school. I mean, just all around that women were allowed to expect and demand things of me, and I was never allowed to demand things of women. And I get that not every young man's going to be beholden to a woman. That's fine. The actual what I'm going to be going through is good for when you have. That's why it's entitled "Significant Others." It is good for when you have a relation. Honestly, any relationship, relationships with work and relationships in general. So, who am I to talk about this subject? First off, I'm not a doctor, and this is not my expertise at all. But I will tell you this: I've been with the same woman for 23 years, and we've been married for 19 of it. This is coming from my own personal experiences and what I think makes a successful relationship. Especially, and again, this is about actually selecting a person to be with, giving you the best chances of longevity in the of longevity with a relationship. And there's no guarantee at all that this will make for a successful relationship, but that's never guaranteed. But um, I needed an episode 2, and here's episode 2. So let's just go through these. The first thing that I want to cover when it comes to this is have a goal and make sure your partner shares that goal. So, number one thing is before you get into any relationship at all, whether it be a friendship or a work relationship with an employer or a spouse or a girlfriend, you need to have in your mind's eye a place you want to go when you're ready to settle down. Because the advice that I would give somebody who just wants to go out and get laid is not the same advice of what I'm going to give you right now. So have a goal in mind where you want to end up. Where do you want to end up in your life? Right? That is number one. Like what in your mind's eye, and it's going to change from the time in your teens is not going to be the same place that you're going to be want to be when you're 20. The place that you want to be when you're 20 is not going to be the same place you want to be when you're 30. These are going to be different stages, and it's going to be your goals are going to grow and they're going to change, and that's fine. But you need to have a goal or a direction, and if your partner, especially your significant other, is not on board with that, they can end up being a huge detriment to your life instead of an actual help to your life. So the first thing that you want to go is make sure that that person who's going to be your significant other is sharing in your goals. Because if they're not, there's not much more you can do about it. Right? That's just a deal breaker. If you're wanting to have, stay at home and have 3 kids and grow in a career, and she just wants to travel the world and become a traveling salesman or something, those two can be very incompatible with each other. Right? She's not wanting to settle down, or vice versa. If you're wanting to not have any kids and she wants to have 2 kids, that's cool. She may be great, she may be hot, she may be the most amazing woman you've ever met, but that's a deal breaker. If you guys don't have the same end goal, or you can't come to a compromise to work those same end goals, then you are a detriment to what the other person wants to do with their life. It's a deal breaker. It's not as if there aren't any other women in the world that can do this. Right? There's definitely other women in the world that can do this, and it's okay to say goodbye to somebody. That's one of the big things, is if your goal isn't the same as their goals, and they don't have to be exactly the same, but you need to be compatible with each other to go along the same lines, then it's a deal breaker. and you just need to walk away from that deal. And every relationship, you need to have the ability to walk away from it. It is a deal. Every relationship in your life is going to be give and take, or a symbiotic relationship. You're going to be getting something out of that relationship. You can take a look at the just your friendships by themselves. There are some people who I converse with on a day to day basis just so I can complain. That is something I get out of that relationship, and that same person gets something out, either finds me funny or wants to complain themselves, or whatnot. The Every relationship is going to have a give and take. You would not be in a relationship with somebody that you're not going to get something out of. And I'm not saying this is selfish. This is a symbiotic relationship, but you do need to have the ability to walk away when something's a bad deal. Right? We call them toxic relationships. When you both aren't getting anything out of the relationship, or only one side is getting something out of the relationship, that's a toxic relationship. This is long and short of it. So you want to make sure to get away from that. You want to make sure that you and your partner have a similar goal in mind. All right. Number two, you need to sit down and talk about compatibility between the work and home. A, a successful relationship, especially if you're having kids and you want a longevity relationship, you have to maintain a house. Right? And a household can be with children or without children or dogs. Who's going to be the one whose primary job it is, or if you want to divvy up the jobs inside of the household, you need to sit down and do that. When I first got with my wife, one of the things that I told her is like, I'm not doing the dishes. I I hate doing. I'm happy. I'm fine doing laundry. I'm fine doing laundry. I cannot do dishes. It pisses me off. In a pinch, I'll do the dishes, but I'll be very honest with you. When it was just me and her, I was like, I'm good. I can go do laundry all day long, but man, you make me do those dishes, we're gonna have a problem, right? And she was fine with that. She was fine with that. She does the honestly does the majority of the cleaning, but mostly because she's OCD. I didn't say that. But she actually enjoys cleaning. She actually one of the great things about our relationship, she enjoys cooking quite a bit. But we both do cooking. When it comes down to it, I usually am the one that would cook breakfast if there's any breakfast to be cooked. Uh, but that's something that you guys need to sit down. In my relationship, for instance, I'm out. I'm the breadwinner. She does have a job, but if one of us was going to quit their job for any reason, it would be her. She only has a job to take up a little bit of time and get some extra money. If we really needed to, we could pinch and bite the bullet a little bit and go to just a single income household. That's not going to be everybody. Most couples will need to have a double income household, but you need to be able to sit down and figure out what is going to be inside of the household. Because, mind you, when I'm talking about this, what I do mean is a person that you are evaluating as somebody you want to have a long term relationship with. This is not for somebody where I want to go out, I want to have a fling, I want to get laid. This is not advice for that. That's a completely different paradigm. By all means, go out and do your thing. But if you're really serious about wanting a significant other, one of the things that you need to do before you start talking to women is sit down and say, I'm this is these are the things that piss me off to the point that I can't stand myself. And then you need to be able to go and talk to that other person and say, hey, I can't do the dishes. I just you're gonna have to do it in this relationship. And they may have a list of things that they just won't do. My wife will not cut the grass. She's allergic. I was fine cutting the grass for years. Right now, I have somebody else who comes and cuts the grass because they live in the house and they do that part of their chores. So I don't, but I was fine with that. Any yard work that needed to be done, that was me. It just is. So that is something that I traded off. She told me absolutely, I will not be cutting the grass ever, and she's held to it, right? you've got to be ready for their list of demands. And if there comes into a conflict, either you're going to come to a compromise or, again, deal breaker. If both you don't want to do the dishes and it makes your life miserable, that may and even though it seems like a small thing, in long-term relationships, little things become very big deals over time. I'm sure you've all heard a woman who is like, I swear to God, if I find his goddamn socks on the ground one more goddamn time, right? Next thing you know, they're angry and upset and justification for divorce and whatnot and upheaval because he left his sock on the ground one more time, or clicking. My wife likes to pick at her hair. It drives me absolutely batshit crazy for some reason. Little things can become very big deals, especially if you don't address them. If you don't address them, little things can become very big deals. You have to address even the little things. You have to address them, right? And you need to sit down and talk about the household. Who's going to be the breadwinner? Who usually between my wife and I was whoever was making the most at the time was the breadwinner of the house. And only one time during our 20 years did my wife actually make more money than me. And even then, when it came time for one of us needed to quit so the other one could have a solid job, it was her. She decided that she wanted to quit. I told her it was dumb, but that's the way she went about it. Um, but yeah, these are things to think about. Number three, and this one's a big one. In any relationship, after you get past the first two and you've sat down and your guys' goals are on track with each other, and you've figured out the compatibility with your work life and your home life and what you're going to do there, then you need to have a lookout for issues. First is the ability to say I want. And again, this looks like, oh, this seems going to seem like a weird thing, but there's a lot of relationships out there where either the man or the woman doesn't have the ability to say, hey, I want this. I want to go on a trip. I want coffee in the morning. I want you to make coffee in the morning. If you can't express your wants to the most important person in your life, you have a toxic relationship. If you don't feel comfortable with it, then you need to sit down and have a serious discussion. Or again, that's a deal breaker. And no matter how many years you are into a relationship, you run into an issue where you cannot express your wants to somebody. What are you doing in that relationship? It's toxic, right? And that goes straight into number four, which is the ability to say no. If you lose the ability to say no, and that is just off, you can't do it. You're not allowed to say no. Again, that's a one-sided toxic relationship. If you cannot say no to somebody, that's a toxic relationship. You need to have the ability to say no to the other person. They may be frustrated, may be angry, but if you don't have yourself into a position where you feel comfortable telling that person, I'm not going to do this, or this is not okay. And if you can't take a no from that person, you could be the toxic one. And they don't start out this way. They can develop over time where you two have been arguing and trying to one up each other to get some sort of perceived control over your relationship, where now one person has so much control in the relationship that you can't tell that person no. You are in a toxic relationship. Number one, you shouldn't be trying to one up each other to begin with. But one of the identifiers, actually the largest identifier, is being able to say I want and being able to say no. Being able to say I want and being able to say no. If only one of you can say no, you have a problem. And that goes in number five. Number five is the ability to argue. Every relationship's going to have an argument. Every relationship you're going to argue. You need to have the ability to argue with that person without hating them. You need to have the ability to argue with them. If you cannot argue with that person, that is the wrong person for you. It really is just the wrong person for you. If one of you is just way better at arguing than the other one, you cannot come to an agreement and argue it and get it out of the way. Then again, that's a toxic relationship. I mean, I you need to be able to expect that out of your significant other is the ability to say, "Hey, I don't like this. This is not going our way. We need to sit down, have a discussion, and argue about it." And then with every argument is kind of a decision on whether or not, hey, do I really want to still be here? But if you can't start that argument to begin with, you don't feel comfortable starting that argument to begin with. And again, this is a little bit later on when you're evaluating a relationship, usually about six months to a year in. If you don't have the ability to be able to argue with that person, man, that's a big red flag, right? I mean, you really need to be able to identify the toxic behaviors, especially inside of women. Women have a lot of toxic behaviors. They're in general more emotionally aware than men are, and you need to understand that. And again, when it comes to a generalization, has nothing to do with individuals. Don't come at me saying I know this one guy who's very emotionally aware, but women in general are way more emotionally aware than men are. My wife is more emotionally aware than I am. She understands the dynamics of a lot of relationships a bit better than me, and that can lead to a lot of friction because that gives her a one up when it comes to relationships with people in general, where she sees things that I don't see, which is something I rely on her for quite a bit. But also, you need to, if you're going to have an argument with somebody, she's going to know how to press your buttons probably better than you know how to press hers. So something to be aware of. And if she's doing that, if she's intentionally, especially during an argument where she's losing, if she is manipulating your emotions in order to stop the argument because she wants you to get too angry, that's a red flag. That's an emotionally manipulative person. That's an emotionally manipulative person. This is something that happens quite often. I got very lucky in that my wife didn't do this. Um, and the ability to walk away from an argument, obviously, when it comes time, and being able to allow the other person to walk away from an argument when it comes time. And that's a hard one because that is definitely on an individual level. There have been times when I have had to sit my wife down and say, no, we're going to talk this out. And there have been times when I know she is too emotionally gone in order to have a rational argument. That takes time to figure out on the other person. But if you have an individual that literally just will not let you get away until it comes to some sort of violent end, that is an emotionally manipulative person. And that's not somebody you need to be in a relationship with at all. That is not somebody you need to be in a relationship. They will not let you walk away when you tell them that you're emotionally drained and you're done. And that's a consistent thing. You can't have a relationship with an individual like that. I mean, this is something that honestly I've sat down and I thought about it a lot. Is you need to having the basis for any relationship. Obviously, the base for any relationship is going to be trust, but then being able to ask things of your partner, like I said with number one, when you have a goal and you have that goal in mind, and the thought process is, I want this out of my life, so that I want this out of you. I mean, if you're a traditional guy and you just want to be traditional, then and you just want a wife to stay at home and cook dinner, then you need to bring the other end of that to the table, right? But you need to understand that when you are talking to a woman and you have that goal in mind, then a lot of that crap is deal breaker. If she's in there and she's, nah, I'm going to go for my master's degree and I'm going to make everything happen and blah 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 blah, and then yeah, she may be a great person. She may be career minded, goal minded. that's not compatible with your lifestyle. I mean, that's just the long and the short of that. I don't know if there's anything more to it. Or on the flip end, I knew this woman. She had a 6-figure income, and she was getting frustrated trying to date a bunch of men who were career minded. And she comes to me and she said, "Hey Jen, I just men are just scared of successful women." And I said, "Bullshit. Who are you trying to date?" She goes, "Oh, you know." Give a little bit more background. She was an individual who flew all over the world, or all over the United States, as a career, and she was only home maybe 1 week out of the month. And so and it was military based. So she would fly to all these different military forts and bases all over the United States, and eventually she was still trying to she was trying to date military men, or businessmen who are doing the same thing that she is. So if they were lucky, they would see each other once every 3 months on a day or two, when they both had a week or a weekend off, and it just didn't wasn't compatible. I finally looked at her. I said, why are you trying to get that?" She goes, "Well, I don't know." And I go, "You don't need a career man. You have a house." She had a house. Like, you have a house. You don't need somebody. You order out every single night because you don't want to cook, because you're so exhausted from working all day that you don't have time to cook. And she goes, "Well, yeah, it's true." I'm like, "You need a stay-at-home husband. You need to find your..." And I told her, because she lived in California near the beach. She was making so much money. She lived in California near the beach. And I go to the beach, take a couple weeks off, go to the beach, find yourself some surfer dude with washboard abs that likes to cook and clean. And he wants to surf the rest of the day. Why are you looking for a military man who's working more hours than you? Y'all don't have time for each other. And you probably figured that out. And she said, "I didn't think about it that way." And then she did that. She actually took 3 weeks off to go find herself. Ended up dating a guy that was a stay-at-home guy that just, again, washboard abs. He stayed in the house and cooked and cleaned and did whatever he wanted, play video games or whatever. He thought it was a great life. She loved it. More power to her. I mean, that's why I mean by have a goal in mind. If your goal is, I want to be a stay-at-home husband and do whatever she wants, you're an agreeable person. You just want to be at home and do whatever she wants. You need to find a woman who wants that. You need to go out and be actively looking for a woman who has a career already done. Right? She is career minded. She wants to be the breadwinner. She wants to make. You do not have. If she's making enough money, you do not need to have a 2-income household. And there's a lot of women out there that are like that. Identify what you want in life, and then you find somebody who supports, who goes into, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is something that I can agree with." And then you build the relationship from there. Your goals may change. But it is more likely that your significant other will grow with the goals that you are, because you're growing together. So you need to have that foundation first before you start into growing together. My goals are not the same as the goals I had when I was in my 20s. They're not. But my wife and I, our goals grew together. We both wanted to have a kid. We had a kid. We wanted to have 2, but that didn't quite pan out. We both wanted to have a house. We bought a house. We both wanted to have, and she wanted to be a little bit more stay at home. Again, she works because she wants to, and it's great because it brings in extra income. And because she brings in extra income, we can do things like, we're going to Bermuda at the end of October, which is great because I can't wait to. We're going on a cruise. But again, That you see what I mean by, you need to be able to expect that out, and you need to identify what you're going to expect. I mean, if you're going to be the breadwinner for a household and you want her to be able to be a stay-at-home wife, then you need to bring things to the table, right? Like, you should have a place to stay. You should have a means of eating and a means of transportation. If you don't have those things before you start a relationship, don't even try. And in large, for 60 to 70% of the Americans out there, the man is probably going to end up being the breadwinner for the majority of that. They'll probably end up a little bit more like my wife and I, where my wife has a part-time job that she enjoys while the husband is the breadwinner. That's not going to be every relationship. I just went through a whole segment talking about how the inverse has happened. I'm not saying this is the norm, but this is in general what happens, right? Then you need to have that, right? Then you need to be able to bring that stuff to the table as a man, and then you need to be able to tell her, this is what I expect out of you, right? And she might not be okay with that. That's okay if she's not okay with it. Move on with your bad self. I'll move on to the next woman. It's okay not to be compatible with each other. It's okay if it's a bad deal. You do not need to be compatible with every person out there. And you shouldn't feel that is what needs to happen. Right? You shouldn't feel that is what needs to happen. I mean, that's honestly should go without being said, but I think one of the most frustrating things that I've seen is, well, you men just don't like me because X. No. What does that have to do? Like, there aren't millions and millions of men out there. As if there isn't millions and millions of men out there. You're telling me you can't find a guy that is compatible with your lifestyle, or you can't find a girl that's compatible. Bullshit. You ain't looking, then. You're not looking hard enough. No. All right, that's all I got for today, guys. Leave comments if you guys want to join in on one of these videos. That's great. Please go ahead and make sure that you message me. And if you guys want to join in, I'm going to be doing these on Monday afternoons, Mountain Standard Time. We can work out a time later on in the week if you want to, but you can come on if you have a subject already ready to go and let me prepare for it. Happy to do that. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share this, please. I think the biggest thing is, if you do like this video, share it. Share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it with your friends. Say, hey, you should look at this. It's difficult trying to figure out your own audience. So I appreciate you guys, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.